President Harry Truman, the then President of the United States, approved the sum of $15 million to help France beat the Viet Minh. They also continued granting more support as the war dragged on. However, now that Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh Army had Chinese assistance, their troops grew to almost 100,000 soldiers. In that same year, they were able to launch a major attack in the north. They targeted French posts along the China border. Using more intense guerrilla tactics, they were able to force the French to retreat. This victory spread joy among the Viet Minh and the Vietnamese. It also solidified their support for China, but it was only the beginning. Everything was already starting to change. The Viet Minh began to regain several parts of Vietnam, including Hoa Binh, located in the west of Hanoi. The following year, France launched an attack on Hoa Binh. Very frustrated with fighting enemies they couldn't see or expect, they were hoping that they could draw Ho Chi Minh and his forces out into a one-on-one battle. But they couldn't have been more wrong. Giap led the Viet Minh forces to break through French lines and surround the French forces instead. Talk about an Uno reverse card. They refused to indulge in direct contact, and France eventually cowered and retreated. Once again, the Viet Minh had proved they could win the battle of attrition. The war continued to drag on, and while both sides suffered, no one was able to claim victory. However, merely 2 years later, in 1954, something happened that would change the course of the First Indochina War. The French made a deadly mistake. The mistake started in 1953 with a man named General Henri Navarre. General Henri was the leader of the French High Command. In late 1953, Navarre came up with an idea to establish a French military stronghold at Dien Bien Phu. Dien Bien Phu was a remote valley near the Vietnamese border with Laos. His big plan was that if they had the command there, they would be able to cut off the supply lines from Vietnam to Laos. It would also be a great spot to launch an attack against the Viet Minh. So, they began the creation of this base. General Navarre made sure this case was fortified with airstrips and that they could resupply from the air. He was convinced that the French army had more weapons and, with air support, they would be able to defeat any Viet Minh attack. This would help them control the region. He couldn't have been more mistaken.